Marrying Rebecca. In this series of Aliyah this week, we have really followed the life of Rebecca, and at least as much as Eliezer going to find Rebecca and bringing her back as a bride to Isaac, and in so doing, have uncovered some really interesting aspects of our life and how we're supposed to relate to the Messiah, using Rebecca as an example. And today we're going to find and look at rather some really additional interesting aspects that really form for us a pattern that connect us to Messiah Yeshua. So good morning. Glad you're here. Thank you so much for being with me on this prep day as we get ready to uh, go into the Holy Sabbath and have another time together. It's going to be wonderful. Looking forward to yet another opportunity to experience truth and life with all of you. Please be sure and subscribe to our channel. Uh, you know, subscribe, like this video, of course, share it with all of your friends. Be sure and support Lapid Judaism and help us with your financial support to get this word out and really to touch a lot of people across the world. That is obviously our goal, bringing in holy sparks into the covenant. And by the way, thank you so much to Daniel for filling in for me yesterday. That was greatly appreciated. He did a great job. Zake and Yigal yesterday evening had his reading again of, or continued reading, I should say, of the Teshuvah book, which is always interesting and always inspiring and always, has us thinking in the right direction. All of that is really, really important. So today we're going to get into some insights. As I said, they're going to really bring out a lot of great understanding and patterns of Messiah Yeshua. And once again, I feel like I'm a broken record, but let me say that there are people who resist rabbinic Judaism and rabbinic writings. And can I just be honest with you, as your psychiatrist, and tell you that that's all rooted in anti-Semitism? Yes, it is. If you hate the rabbis, if you're distrustful of the sages, and you think rabbinic literature is just a big eye roll, that's just anti-Semitism, and that's all it is. And the cure really is to make tshuva and get rid of that spirit, because in the sources, here again, we find some extremely valuable gems that help us to connect the dots and see the pattern that Hashem set for us. If you're against this stuff, then you're robbing yourself of all of this. And so I just want to encourage you, as your psychologist, as your psychiatrist, as your therapist, to move past that. It's time to get beyond the anti-Semitic attitude, which is keeping you from really being able to enjoy these insights as I share daily here, that really connect us to Hashem. Speaking of which, I want to say Todah Rabbah to Daniel yesterday. I was listening to him as we were traveling and doing our thing yesterday, which was preventing me from being here. And as he was talking about, first of all, he went over the gifts that Eliezer had given Rebecca. Thank you very much for that. I really wanted to be able to cover that. I thought they were very interesting and insightful. And he was talking about Laban, who's the brother of Rebecca. Don't forget that, because Laban becomes a big part of the story as we get into the story of Jacob and his wives, right? All four of whom are daughters of Laban. But Laban was a big time sorcerer, and Daniel was bringing out the fact that Laban, being very greedy, wanted to come out and basically cameljack, not carjack, cameljack Eliezer and steal all of his stuff. And as he was talking, I was utilizing my Obi-Wan Kenobi like Jedi skills. I was channeling divine energy into Daniel, and I was saying, Daniel, speak about Eliezer hovering over the well. And amazingly, he must have heard, use the Force, Luke, and he actually talked about Eliezer hovering over the well of water, and Laban getting scared and basically backing off and realizing that the Spirit of the Lord is with Eliezer, and basically not to attempt to harm him in any way, spiritually or otherwise, right? Okay, so let me add to that because I'm so glad he went there. That was really important. Let me explain why. Another reason why that um, uh, Eliezer's a marine. Hoorah! That's right. He's amphibious. Let me explain the reason why that is so significant. As again, we look at the sources, which are oh so important. As I started out saying, how many of you remember the fact that Yeshua walked on water? That's a big deal, right? Most people know that. Not everybody may not everybody maybe, but a lot of people remember that one of the big miracles that Yeshua did is he walked on the Sea of Galilee. He walked on water. Okay. Now, what you may not know, how many of you remember the movie? The movie. I just went, Wizard of. I just went blank. The movie Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz, right? And how many remember? How many of you remember that in that movie of the Wizard of Oz, okay, that the way the witch was defeated ultimately was water, right? I'm melting. Ready, the water and the witch. Okay. Now, I don't know who wrote the screenplay for the Wizard of Oz. But I would not be shocked at all to find out that that was a Jewish person. But the reason I bring this up is because in the rabbinic writings, remember, the rabbinic writings, how important they are. In the sources of the rabbinic writings, that's too bad, Rick, because I do. That's my last name, in fact. Just like that's in rabbinic literature too. But anyway, so let's say this. In the rabbinic writings, it talks about the fact that sorcerers and occultists have no power over water. Their sorcery doesn't work over water. So now, how many of you have heard that one of the accusations against the Messiah was that he practiced sorcery? Okay, that all of this stuff wasn't of God; that it was actually of sorcery. Okay, all right. All right, so I'll put all these things together. So Yeshua is accused of practicing sorcery. Occultists and sorcery practice, according to rabbinic literature, according to ancient Jewish sources, doesn't work over water. Then you have Laban, who's a sorcerer. Then you have Eliezer, who's hovering over a well of water. Okay, so let's put all this together. All right, and let's look at the Torah anthology of Mam Loez. It says Eliezer was able to accomplish this, right, through the power of the Spirit, basically. Such levitation, however, could also be accomplished through black magic. Okay, so that's it. The sorcerers, the occultists, they levitate. They still do today. Okay. Not wanting Laban to assume that he was engaged in sorcery, Eliezer stood on a surface of the water in the well. So according to Mam Loez here, Eliezer is standing upon the surface of the water. Says those versed in the occult arts know that they are powerless when in contact with water. Okay, so one of the reasons why Laban backed off of Eliezer is because he realized that his sorcery was not going to work against Eliezer, if for no other reason than Eliezer can do what he does while in contact with water, which no occultist, no person practicing witchcraft can do. Okay. Now, this is important, all right, for lots of different reasons. Why is this story so important? Again, why is rabbinic literature so critical? And why do I say, which is 100% true, if you reject it, it's rooted in anti-Semitism. Trust me, friends, I know. Okay. I've been doing this for a minute. Talked with a lot of people. I talked with people across the United States and at least 15 different countries over the course of 25 years. All right. I'm not a novice. I didn't start this rodeo last week. Okay. I've got 1,300 videos over on this channel. I have given probably 1,000 hours worth of teaching in the course of just a few years. Okay. I know what I'm talking about here. This is why this stuff is so important. So most people who hate the Talmud, by the way, don't know anything about it. Can I just say that? It's also a proven fact, but I digress. So going back to this, there's several reasons why this is so important. A, it teaches us that Yeshua is not a sorcerer. From what? From rabbinic literature. We know from rabbinic literature that Yeshua definitely is not a sorcerer. Why? Because he walked on water. Sorcerer's power doesn't work according to what I just read to you. According to the rabbinic sources, doesn't work on water. Okay. Number two, the point in fact here is that Eliezer walked on water. If we can just say it like that, when he was what? Looking for a bride for the Messiah. I'm sorry, for the resurrected living sacrifice, right? And so what do we have here? We have a pattern. We have a pattern. We have Eliezer who shows up and walks on water when he's looking for Rebecca. We have Yeshua who walks on water when he's looking for the bride of Mashiach, as it were. And so this is why that insight was so important. It's why I wanted to share it with you, because we see things like this. And this is what I love about this, is because sometimes we read stories in the Bible and we just pass over them because we don't understand the insights. We don't know what we don't know. And I call them speed bumps. We kind of speed bump over stuff like, oh, that's interesting, not realizing how important, in fact, it is. All that stuff about Laban running out to meet Eliezer by the well. If Daniel had not shared with you what he shared, and if I didn't share with you what I just shared right now, all from rabbinic sources, that story would have had really not a whole lot of meaning. It would have been more like, oh, he came in and welcomed him indoors. But now you see this picture has been painted. How is this picture painted, by the way? Through rabbinic literature. Hello, is anybody paying attention? All right, so let me go to another story here. Speaking of rabbinic literature. Another great insight here. So Rebecca, just like Daniel talked about yesterday, Rebecca decides that she wants to go back with Eliezer. She's a brave girl. I mean, listen, this is again speaking to people who want to convert to Judaism. It is listen, it's no small thing. Okay, it's no small thing. Can I just say this at the risk of sounding offensive? Becoming a Christian is no big deal. It really isn't. You go to a church, you feel emotionally moved, which is great. And listen, can I just also say we've all been there? Listen, I've been there. I did that. Now, my experience when I became a believer was real and genuine, and I assume that yours was too, and as was many others. Okay. But by and large, when I became a Christian, it was a real transference. I really became born again. I believe. Okay, I became a different person. Yes, but really, it wasn't that big of a deal. My life didn't change. I want to say, on the one hand, it changed a lot, and on the other hand, it didn't change all that much. Well, what do you mean it changed? Well, that seems like a dichotomy. Well, it was, and it is, in the sense that it changed a lot, in the sense that I was no longer this kind of riotous, wild person who did things right that weren't good. But at the same time, I was generally pretty much the same. I was just nicer. I was just less immoral. I had more, let's say, family values. But in terms of my everyday life, it didn't really change all that much. I was still a Texan. I was still an American. I was still locked into the culture. Okay. Really wasn't all that big of a deal. And frankly, I mean, even my non-Christian friends didn't really, we still did all the same things together. It really wasn't that big of a deal. Uh, except that maybe I didn't do some of the more licentious stuff with them and so forth. Does that make sense? Does that resonate with anybody? Um, so it's really not that big of a deal. Okay. Even like even family members like, okay, so he's a Christian now. All right. Uh, you know, I didn't really get any family rejection. No one said stop coming over. Okay. I didn't really have friends who necessarily stopped wanting hanging out with me necessarily. Did I lose some friends? Yeah, because I didn't want to do the things they were doing anymore, going to the clubs and so forth and so on. But I mean, really, it wasn't that dramatic, right? Um, would you agree with me that now, once I started becoming Jewish, once I started embracing my Judaism, that was a whole different story. That's a whole nother world. And would you agree with me that do you feel the same way? For those of you who had become Christians at some point in your life, and now you've either gone through conversion or you're going through conversion, do you see the radical difference? Now you tell me. I believe it was there, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you don't see it so much. But listen, for Rebecca, this is a huge deal. Leaving her family behind, leaving everything that she is accustomed and just going seemingly blindly. Now she's not entirely blind. We can't forget the fact that it's not like Rebecca didn't know anything about Abraham. It's not as if she didn't know anything about Sarah or Isaac. I mean, they're family, okay? They may not have Instagram or Facebook, but they do communicate. There would have been some level of communication, okay? It's not like, I'm sorry, who are you? Abraham, who's he? Come on, these people knew. So she knew something, right? But she still left her family and went and made this decision, and in so doing would become a matriarch. And so the message to all of us is it's not good enough. And this is what Christianity does, in my opinion. Christianity basically says, okay, great. So you can become a believer in your world of Haran. You can become a believer and still basically remain in your family. But Judaism says no. Not that Judaism is cultish, God forbid. We don't say that if you become a Jew, you have to cut off contact with your family. Don't misunderstand. I'm talking here in spiritual terms. Judaism says no. If you really want to enter the covenant, you have to leave your family. You have to now, not literally, guys. Please don't misunderstand what I'm saying. You don't have to stop talking to your mother and father, your brother and sister, your cousins or uncles and so forth. I'm not talking literally here. Okay. We're not weirdos. We're not nutcases. This is not Jim Jones nonsense. I'm talking here spiritually, but you do have to leave. You have to become really a part of a whole nother nation. I'm a Jew first, and after that, an American. Sorry, I'm a Jew first. The day, God forbid, that America turns its guns on Israel, I'm out. Okay, I'm a Jew first, a Texan second, American third. Okay, so that's how I roll. And so that's where my loyalty lies, and that's where your loyalty has to lie, and that's where Rebecca's loyalty was lying as well. And so she went back to Abraham really with this faith of leaving it all behind. And I guess that's what I'm trying to articulate to you. You have to leave it all behind. This is why I say about the issue with respect to rabbinic literature. The reason I hammer it so hard is you can't be a half Jew. Can't be a half Jew. You can't be a Jew and reject Judaism. And rabbinic literature is Judaism. That's why I hammer it so hard. This war with Israel, or excuse me, this war with Hamas that Israel's going through, and all the stuff that you see, all the anti-Semitism. I was just talking to Zakin Yigal the other day, and Moshe. All it's made me want to do is double down on my Judaism. And if there's any inkling in me, I mean, any speck of something else in there, I'm rooting that out. In as much as the IDF is rooting out Hamas and Gaza, I am rooting out anything and everything of me that's not Jewish. if there's anything there. You know what I'm saying? So to me, it's made me want to double down. Like I'm a Jew, and I'm not even kidding right now. Okay, so just know that, believe that, trust that. That's where it's taken me, right? And that's where it's taken a lot of people. There's a lot of Jews today who were totally secular, all tatted up, and they're like, you know what? I'm Jewish, so I'm out. I'm out on all this other stuff, and this has made me go that direction. And that's where you have to be in your life, and that's where Rebecca was. Now watch what happened. Okay, so Rebecca has lots of great things so far. Eliezer has shown up, and he's blessed her. He's given her all this jewelry. Somebody wrote into the channel, by the way, and said that, you know, wearing jewelry is not allowed. Guys, I don't even, I'm not even gonna go there. That's just cultish stuff. I know where that comes from. Listen, I came from a Christian tradition. My family did anyway, not necessarily me personally, but my family did, in which, you know, women weren't supposed to wear makeup and they weren't supposed to wear jewelry and all that's just a cult. Okay. Can I just tell you that? Ladies, makeup fine, jewelry fine. Anyway, I digress. Hashtag don't be a cult. So if you look at Rebecca, though, something marvelous happens to her. And this comes down from the insides that could not have happened unless she had gotten on that camel and went to Abraham's place. Okay. And this marvelous thing that happened to her was that she ended up getting married to Isaac. Yes. But that occurred because she saw him coming in the clouds. Okay. So I want you to think about this, what I'm about to share with you, in the terms of a pattern. We can't experience our Mashiach coming to us in the clouds unless we're willing to leave our familiar homeland and our all that stuff behind. That's really the message. She would never have been able to experience the miracles that she's experienced, not just the coming in the clouds, but some other things I'm going to share with you in just a second, if she had not actually left her homeland. And so with this, it's talking about that when she made her journey back to Abraham's place to meet Isaac, the sources bring down that Isaac isn't there. He hasn't been there for 3 years. Okay. And there's discussion here about where is Isaac? Where and there's you know, there's different philosophies. Now, by the way, in rabbinic thought, you know, some see it as disagreement. Listen, when Jews have discussions, Gentiles see it as arguments. Jews see it as just discussing Torah. Okay. It's not an argument. One person says this, another person says that. They say that, look, that's disagreement. That's not disagreement. That's just Torah discussion. A lot of times it's not disagreement. It's actually looking at things that are really the same through a different prism. And for the Gentile mind, they see that as, oh, that's not consistent. That's disagreement. That's not unity. Jews don't look at it that way. Let me give you an example. There are some rabbis who said for 3 years he stayed on Mount Moriah and didn't leave. That's where he dwelt. And other rabbis said, no, he was 3 years in Gan Eden, in the purity of Gan Eden, until this event. So a Gentile looks at that and says, well, which is it? Is he on Mount Moriah or is he in Gan Eden? See, the Jews can't agree. See, it's just a bunch of nonsense. See, they're just always arguing. But as a Jew, he says, oh, it's the same thing. Why? Because Gan Eden is Mount Moriah. Mount Moriah is Gan Eden. So he's on Gan Eden? Yeah, okay. And he's in Mount Moriah. The only difference is that was he in the physical or was he in the supernatural realm? That's the only question. And the fact of the matter is we don't really know. You see what I mean? So it says here, now Isaac came from having gone to Ber Leoi Roy. Now, some insight suggests that he had gone to this place in order to collect Hagar, who had gone through conversion finally, and her name is now Keturah, and she's going to become the wife of Abraham. And there's some really good insights from that. But others say that actually this means that he was coming from Gan Eden. So I want you to see this picture. Okay. Now, how many of you have ever heard that the scripture basically says that Rebecca is riding on her camel, and she comes to this area where she's going to see Isaac. And when she sees Isaac coming to her, she asks, who's that? And somebody says, that's my master. That's basically your future husband. She kind of swoons and falls off her camel. Now, some who write about this in the commentaries and so forth say, well, that's because, he was so handsome, he was so majestic looking, he was so princely looking, whatever, that she kind of swooned and fell off her camel. Or not really fell off the camel. She didn't really fall off the camel, but she kind of slid like she might fall off the camel. Now, I suppose that's plausible, right? And you ladies could disagree with me on this, or you might agree. I don't know. Agree, disagree. It's all opinion. But I don't know if ladies necessarily. I mean, I could see a gentleman seeing his beautiful bride to be and basically be like, wow, man, that's kind of a guy thing. We often look at our wives, and of course brides before they officially are wives, and we're like, wowza. Okay, that's it. Like, we definitely fall off our camels, that's for sure. But I don't know if women are necessarily, wow, he's so handsome. Woo, I don't know. But maybe. But I'm I don't know. Because I'm not a female, thank God. No offense to females. But a more plausible explanation is what's been brought down here in this insight. And it says that, so the question is asked first, where is Isaac? Okay. And it says, the Holy One, blessed be he, brought him into the Garden of Eden, and there he stayed for 3 years. Okay. So what it's saying here is that after the Akedah of Isaac, he did not return with Abraham, but rather he went to Gan Eden and he stayed there for 3 years. 3 days in the tomb, 3 years. Okay, you see what's going on here. So then it goes on to say, then on occasion, the Akedah theme was tied into one knot with the legend of the virtues of Eliezer, Abraham's senior servant, who carried out his mission faithfully, but had been suspected gratuitously, and for that reason was found worthy of being included in the number of those righteous men who never knew the taste of death, for the ministering angels had led him up into paradise during his lifetime. Okay. So it goes on to say, here is a wonder indeed. Isaac emerged from paradise alive, while Eliezer entered paradise alive. Okay, so it's saying here that because Eliezer was so righteous and so faithful to Abraham, that Eliezer didn't actually die, much like Elijah. He walked into paradise, heaven, alive. Whereas Isaac emerged from paradise alive. And this is very important because the insights are bringing down here that just like Yeshua, who rose and came to us, right, and went back. So this is what's happening with Isaac. It says the hint of this occurrence is found in Scripture, Genesis 24, 62, 63. And Isaac came from the way of Beer Lechai, and Isaac went out. From where did he go out? The question is asked. From paradise. So therefore it says, no wonder Rebecca lost her equilibrium when she fell from the camel in verse 64. For what she perceived was Isaac coming down from paradise, and he walked the way of the dead walk, head down and feet up. And what was he doing all that time in paradise? He was there. There he was healing from the wounds he had received on Mount Moriah when Abraham laid him down on the altar to become the sacrifice, and he had spent 3 years there waiting for Rebecca. In other words, the reason that Rebecca slid off her camel is because she saw Isaac coming to her on the clouds of glory, as it were. Rebecca, by the way, is a convert to Judaism. So we see here that that because Rebecca made a decision to convert to Judaism, to leave her family and everything familiar behind and embrace a completely new life, because of that, she merited seeing the living sacrifice coming to her on the clouds of glory. And that's the pattern that I wanted you to see today. And just to read from the Kale Tumash, it's a very pretty much the same thing, but it's a little bit different. It says, on a deeper level, we are taught that in the Midrash that during the 3 years from the bonding of Isaac until Rebekah became old enough to marry, Isaac was hidden in the Garden of Eden. Only when the time came for him to establish a family did he emerge from the Garden of Eden to greet her. So the reason that he came to or left the Garden of Eden is because he needed to establish a family. What was the purpose of the family? To spread Judaism. The Garden of Eden is devoid of evil and cannot tolerate any form of it. Therefore, Isaac's seclusion in the Garden of Eden teaches us a practical example before we get married, and that is that we should spend our time living a life that fosters and preserves purity and innocence. Okay. Now, one final thing about this before we conclude is that it's brought down in the sources that excuse me one second, because I want to share this insight from the Gutnick Chumash, that before Isaac married Rebekah, so he came in the cloud of glory, and this is another lesson to us. This is another pattern. Okay, so she came, and he came to her in the cloud of glory. Okay, that's great. Somebody wrote in, I don't know if it was you, Randy, or somebody else. I don't know. Let me check the channel right quick before I make a mistake. Somebody asked this question, and I think that this kind of is a good opportunity to give the answer. Who was it that asked this question? See if I can just coming up with it really quickly. I don't see who it was. Somebody asked about it was you, Randy, right? Yes, it was. It was Randy. So Randy asked about the connection between Rebekah and the 10 virgins. This, I think, is where the answer to that is. The answer ultimately to you, Randy, is yes. Rebekah is like a type and shadow of the 10 virgins story from the Gospels. And here's why. So Rebekah comes back. Isaac meets her in the clouds, right? Or comes down from Eden in the clouds to meet her. That's all well and good, but he doesn't marry her yet. He doesn't marry her yet until he takes her into the tent of his mother, Sarah. And the insight says, like, for instance, here in the Gutnick, it says, in the recent years, it's become customary for girls to light Sabbath candles before they're married. And this has re-emerged from antiquity. This is actually an ancient practice, which is indicated by Rashi in his comments of verse 67. Here we see Rebekah, light candles before she was married, for only after Isaac had taken her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, and witnessed that her Shabbat candles burned the entire week, did he then take her to be his wife. In fact, it was primarily the observance of this mitzvah that proved to Yitzhak the suitability of Rebekah as his spouse and a mother in Israel. In other words, he was looking to see if she was truly a Jewess. Did she really have the anointing of a Jewess? To your question, Randy, did she have the oil for the lamps? This is good. Did she have the oil there was 10 virgins, and some of them didn't have the oil. And the ones that had the oil were the ones that were taken into the bridal chamber. And the ones that didn't have the oil were left out. See this, I could use this teaching and say, this is why we have to be sincere converts. For those of you who've gone through conversion, you have to be sincere. You have to be Ger Zadakim. This is why you can't be half converts. This is why I stress. I know I'm heavy-handed with the rejecting rabbinic literature stuff, but listen, we're not playing games here. We're not playing games. There's no half converts in Lapid Judaism. There's nobody here in Lapid Judaism that rejects rabbinic literature and rejects Jews and Judaism. We're not playing that game. We don't have time. We don't have time. It's one thing to see the Messiah come on the clouds of glory. That's great. But he's not going to take you to be his bride unless you light the candles and they stay lit. And that's what we have to, that's why teshuvah is so important. See, that's why what Zaken Yigal does with teshuvah is so important. That's why what Zaken Rayford does when he's constantly telling people, welcome home. And that's Zaken Rayford's thing. Welcome home. And he's constantly talking to people about avodah and constantly talking to them about bitachon. This is why this trifecta is so important, because it's teaching us we can't just it takes it all. We have to be willing to leave everything. We have to be willing to have faith in the Messiah Yeshua and be truly born again by believing that in the Mashiach who comes in the cloud of glory. And we have to be real in our faith, so real that when we light our candles, they stay lit. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect. Don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. All of us, nobody's perfect. And by the way, if you feel like your Judaism is lacking, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you feel like you're not good enough, that's a good thing. That means you are good enough. And if you feel like you're good enough, then you probably lack. So let's be like Rebecca. We've learned about Rebecca all week long. Finding Rebecca, acquiring Rebecca, saving Rebecca, and now marrying Rebecca. Let's take this example into the Holy Shabbat, and let's ask Hashem to help us to be his true bride. End of our Aliyah. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I love each and every one of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Shabbat shalom. Have an amazing day, amazing prep day. Let's get together tomorrow and we'll hear another You've Heard It Said, and it'll be amazing. So shalom. Look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. Until then, be blessed, be highly favored. See you then.